report on the back page, page 4. Underlined items noted for further discussion, non-replenishment of comp time, and harassment to whom reported clear eligibility in the policy. I just wanted to mention that John Gregory is the one who made the request for an option of non-replenishment of comp time, and I believe it was Kim who asked us to check into the eligibility of elected officials for the harassment portion of the policy. I don't think we need to add that, but I just wanted to clarify that.
So what do you want to add?
I don't think we need to change anything.
Not anything, okay.
No.
Okay.
And the other thing is under number 11 on the water committee, Suzanne asked whether the town had made application for the priority list, which the town must apply for. I double checked my wording on that. I said, will the town apply for it? Because I really don't have the authority as a single select board member to say what.
All the way down through the top paragraph, I mean, let's see. All of page 4, from 4 on down is not transcribed anymore. But that was my reasoning. Everybody was wondering what was said, and so I said, I will tell you exactly what it was said, so I wrote it all up.
So it's recorded. You took the recording and did the notes from it.
Yeah.
I didn't see that on Fact TV. Is it?
It isn't on Fact TV because when this computer was set up at the last meeting, Kim forgot to plug this in.
Okay.
And so they didn't get very good reception. I have it on this computer if anybody wants to listen to it.
Okay.
And then the last 3 or 4 minutes are,
So the recording is in your office?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean,
I sent them the recording I have here. Our problem with this recording, and Kim has asked him in what we can do about it, is this computer and probably my computer and maybe Kim's computer. No, Kim's computer won't. My computer and this computer, which are kind of paired up, are the only ones that can play the recording. So if anybody wants them, they can take this computer and listen to it.
Right.
Okay.
I
Since it's
can't put
not
them online
available-
or anything.
No, that's fine.
They won't work.
Yeah, that's no problem. I think it would resolve it, Bill, if you just add next to present online Fact 8 TV, the recording is available through Bill Hearn. So if anybody wanted to listen to the recording. Could you just add that in line 3, please?
Where do you want me to add it?
See where it says present online?
thank you. Okay, Jack, you're on the hot seat here now. Tell us about why the school can't find out how much money they have. Seriously,
Yeah.
it's really a very shameful thing.
You won't get this treatment from me. Okay. We have, as you know, we went through, e-COLA, about a year and a half ago. We had a period where the superintendent and an accounting firm were acting as the de facto, finance office. We hired, for my objection, a young lady who had no school finance background to be the head of the fiscal office. We then allowed a assistant superintendent to, without our knowing it, to be writing checks and assigning money from what's called the ESSER account for emergency services money that the feds gave us. And when we brought the accountants in, they said, my, this is a mess. And it was. And weirdly enough, part of the mess was made by the very accountants that are auditing the books, because they were the ones that we are in a completely unacceptable situation where the people auditing our books are some of the people that created the books. What kind of errors have been made? There's no cash missing, but we have things, and I'm saying this is on Fact TV, by the way, because some of this gets into sort of excruciating detail, and I want to I'm a little uncomfortable.
We don't need all the details,
Well,
basically.
we'll just
We
say,
need to understand
let's just
why.
say, money that was assigned to the retirement fund seems to have been recorded in the disability fund, things like that. There are a number of those areas. There are a couple, however, that you care about, you care a lot about. For example, we send our children to middle school, and that we pay tuition for that. Well, normally, that's done for the students that go to Bells Falls by means of a cash transfer with a note. Well, the accountants, when they were there, decided that they wanted a vote of the board and a formal bill, except they didn't tell anybody. So there was no formal bill sent, and the money sat in our account and didn't sit and wasn't transferred to the Rockingham School District. And suddenly we're getting these notes, oh, surprise, surprise, the Unified School District. Now, I've been doing this stuff in the money that we assign at the beginning of the year in actual expenditures, because over 95% of it is encumbered literally on the first day of school. So it's not possible. And I've been setting my hair on fire about this for the last couple of months, because I've been hearing, oh, we've got these surpluses, and boy, look at all these things we're going to be able to do, when in fact that wasn't possible. So we were in a situation where I don't know right now if some of these numbers, some of this goes back to 2019, so it isn't just on the outgoing finance director. It's not even some of it on the outgoing on her predecessor. But some of this apparently has been carried on since 2019. So right now we're in a situation where we need to go and see, back when he was there. So we need to go back and see if numbers sent to the state were accurate and what we could do about it. The first indication that was screwed up actually came when Kim brought to my attention the fact that we thought we had we were under the spending threshold because the net revenues a couple of years ago at high school, and found that in fact not only were we not under the threshold, we were over it nominally. We were being charged an assessment, an additional assessment for being over the threshold, and that's not what you approved, and that's not what we approved. So this needs to be cleaned up. Why it also affects you is because the audit, all our timelines are now dependent on auditors. When are they going to get these books cleaned up? Assuming that they do, assuming that we even think that we have confidence in them cleaning them up. So as a consequence, I know what our expenditures will be. Well, I don't know what our expenditures will be for the upcoming year, but I can't tell you what our revenues are. If I don't know what our offsetting revenues are, I can't set a number and send it to you. So the question is, how soon is that going to get done? It's going to get done when the auditors jolly well decide it's going to get done. So here we are. I normally would have a budget done today. I don't have a budget done today. I don't have a budget done for any district. Yeah, except on I don't control Rockingham, but I'm certainly on the budget committee for the other ones. And if I can't have offsetting revenues, which can be as much as a third of expenses, I can't submit a budget for voters' approval. I don't know what the numbers are, which means that if we get them in early January, we can probably still make it. If we get them in very late January, my 40 days are a problem, and it means that we'll probably be submitting budgets for approval in April.
That means 2 tax bills we get, perhaps, like we had to do.
You are hearing me loud and clear.
Which costs the town a lot of money.
It costs every town a lot of money.
And the town clerk's extra work.
You aren't kidding. we've gotten bills from from Westminster for the extra cost, and I said the only problem I have with that is why Grafton and Addendum aren't sending them too. Because it is extra work, and it's a bit of a disgrace. And I feel, I'm not the accountant. I can only deal with the numbers I've got, but I can question them, and I've been questioning them for 2 years, getting louder and louder about it. And one of the reasons that your assistant superintendent was not given the grace of resigning on her own was because of this. And one of the reasons that I'm suggesting to the school districts that we really may want somebody else auditing these going forward is that I think it's an ethical violation to have your auditor auditing their own books, even if it's only for a couple of months. But there's some things you don't do, and that's one of them. And a lot of this are errors that go back to the conversion from our old finance system to e-finance, which still doesn't allow you to do annotations, still doesn't allow you to make comments, to explain expenditures, which still gives you 10 characters to describe what the money's for, to what to, and literally makes all subcategories when you're writing a check to a vendor, and you've got multiple things that you're buying from them. It does that come from multiple accounts, by the way. You're only allowed to make one entry. So you literally have to create a separate set of documents on an Excel spreadsheet, which is a cause of error, and you have to do it all manually, which, I mean, this is 2021. So that's just yet another complication. It's a type of system that no business in the world would ever use, and it's forced on us because the state signed the contract. Don't ask me why.
Well, wasn't it the state asked, because this is a state's program, and they asked certain towns to be the guinea pig, and Middlesbrough decided they wanted to be a Rockingham, whatever it is.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And that happened before I was on budget committees, and obviously, I as an old IT guy, you never signed up to use beta. Not if you possibly can, because this is a type of garbage that occurs. But there really was nobody to fix this. When Edie left, we brought a consultant, and they said that you have the smallest finance staff for a budget the size of any district in the state of Vermont, the ESU in the state of Vermont, and there are going to be inevitable errors because you simply don't have enough staff to catch it. You don't have enough staff to really run day-to-day operations. What you would need a person just to oversee the conversion process, and you don't have it. And as a consequence, we were still finding chart of accounts that had not been completed even as the last year.
Who's in charge?
Good question. Who's in charge? Ultimately, we've gone through three superintendents. We've had 2 finance directors and an accounting firm. The one constant is your boards. So they ultimately own what the staffing was for this department. They own the fact that they were told that the staffing was inadequate. They had oversight over superintendent and assistant superintendent, who apparently were pulling around with the ESSER funds and pulling money out. You know, it's what you may have noticed a very loud, messy couple of board meetings about that from the supervisory union board. But ultimately, it's on us.
So what's your next steps to resolve this?
Good question. Right now, we're continuing the audit process. We're obviously trying to hire a finance director that has experience. We made a pledge to Andy Haas, who's our current superintendent, to let him spend what he needs to fix it. I have to say he's not a finance guy. We really, to be perfectly honest with you, Jason and I are the only guys with fiscal backgrounds on any of the boards.
And a new audit, new auditor?
New auditor
Is
is
this an
definitely.
auditor, former auditors that you've used, the same ones?
This is
all the
RHR,
time?
has been the one we've been using for quite a while. That's also consistency. And so the question should be asked, and you're about to ask it, if it's the same auditor that let this slide for 2 years and worked on the books, why are they still employed by you?
Right.
Right.
I think that's an excellent question, and one that we will be dealing with shortly.
Well, my question is that, this should have been picked up by an auditor.
Right.
I
Damn
don't think
it.
the auditors have an absolute responsibility.
That's what
Look,
I
I've
was
worked with
saying.
auditors all my life in business. We work with one here.
Yeah,
The auditor is the one who raises the flag.
yeah.
They didn't raise any flags, so what were they doing?
Well, isn't that an interesting question? Under state law, the audit that's required is really basically a reconciliation, at sort of the most basic level. I've been saying since I got on school boards how many years ago at this point, that this kind of an audit would allow for all sorts of errors, and is not sort of thing that I use to run a grocery store based on this kind of an audit. It's not a proper audit. This year, we're actually getting a proper audit. But it's ironic because, as you say, it's audit by the same people that should have been fixing these things back in 2019. So,
What's your timeline?
well, a good portion, we're in a sort of odd position because if I change auditors now, not that it's up to me, it's up to these boards, that would put months on this process, and we don't have months because I've got, we got tax bills to get generated. So the first thing we need to do is get through this process somehow. And so the first part of the timeline is getting the audit completed. The second one is, hopefully concurrent with that, is finding a VASBO certified finance director with some years of experience. We've identified a person that that retired a couple of years ago, but since they haven't signed, I'm going to pull some confidentiality in place. But that's not easy, but it's somebody who does know this and has had some experience with e-finance, and somebody I trust.
Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. Okay, you keep talking about audit. Whenever you said auditor tonight, you are talking about professional auditor.
RHR Smith.
Say again?
RHR Smith.
Okay, because I was thinking, so how, I don't understand if you could explain to us how RHR Smith, were they day-to-day in the finance, could you, the same people that,
When Edie Cole left, Chris Pratt, the superintendent at the time, said that he would manage the process until we restaffed. After a fairly short period of time, it became clear that he assigned some of that work to the assistant superintendent, William Carey, and he brought in initially as advisors, but they ended up working on a day-to-day basis, RHR Smith staffers.
okay,
I've not seen the contract, and I've asked several times, because the scope of work seems to vary depending on who you ask, so I want to see the exact contract, assuming there is one, that defines their scope of work. as it was defined to us initially, it was to complete the chart of accounts and execute the transfer and to help manage the day-to-day stuff such as was needed. But I think it's fair to say that, again, the reason why Chris Pratt's not there is also because of this. Yes.
Right, so,
Keep firing people, it's not helping.
right, but all this is wonderful news, but what is the fix? What
The thing is to have
what
professional.
can the town expect happening?
Well, you're asking the question that we're asking. And, I don't have day-to-day, I'm not running the finance department, because this would not happen. Any more than if you were running it, it would happen. But the reality is that I'm not running it, and it's not proper for for school boards to get involved at that granular level. That's why you hire professionals. We've got to find staff, we've got to find enough of them, and we've got to make sure that the charter accounts are bulletproof. We've got to work with the vendor, the folks that created e-finance to complete the kind of additional steps like having an annotation line, having some of the stuff you need to write normal fiscal reports. I don't know how the hell some of the other towns that are running this stuff are not having the same kind of errors, except of course they staffed up properly, and maybe they had people with sufficient experience to run it, but we didn't.
Do you have any estimate of how much you're in the hole?
I actually don't. I think when all is said and all is done, I think that we're probably not in the hole as an SU. Now, a lot of this stuff is, internal transfers, like I said, the business about whether or not we actually put the money into the retirement account instead of the disability account stuff. We can get that cleaned up. That's what, if indeed that's what happened. We're trying to, they were matching checks on this as of about 5-6 days ago. The big one really is going to be the tuition stuff, and that's really the only one that I worry about because that's real money.
But you already know how many children we have that are tuitioned out in each of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's a no-brainer.
Yep.
So we have a figure.
I don't have a figure tonight, but I'll have a figure for you in a day or two. I just didn't have it.
So whatever we paid last year, to move it forward, like a level fund type
No,
thing.
it doesn't work that way. The only reason your budgets bobble up and down as a small district, this is back when we were independent. Now, the reason why you get these 5-10% swings year to year was all about the middle school tuition. Some years you'd have 6 kids, some years you'd have 16. And depending on how many you had, we don't have any discretion about this. However many go to middle school, we pay the bill. And if the bill changes from what we estimated, that's probably 80% of your surplus or your deficit year to year.
So you began by saying 3%
Yeah,
difference. What's the percent now?
I still think this year we've sent exactly the same number of kids we estimated this year. And some of that's due to leveling because we've got Westminster in the kitty here. I think that at the end of the day, we should be fine. The question I don't have secured, that I can't be secure about, is those past years, where the numbers submitted to the state, the ones that we approved. I don't know that. I need to know that. You need to know that, but I don't have it. I would say, the likelihood is they're fine, but I can't tell you with any certainty that they're fine, and until I can, I'm not going to tell you it's all going to be better, a month from now, because I don't know. All I know is the numbers that I have from expenditures. Like I said, I know what we spent. I know pretty close to the dollar what we spent. What I don't know is whether or not we have offsetting, whether the offsetting revenues from feds, Title I, Title IX, Title IV, from money that the state gives us for special ed. I don't know if those were correctly calculated by the office. I know what we had, but I don't know, I can't prove to you that they're accurate because I don't, that's what the audit is for.
Sounds like a lot of people aren't doing the job.
I'd say that's a pretty good guess.
This is nothing new either, when I was on the school board.
What?
It's nothing new, when I was on the school board a few years ago, it was always a special needs that was always a problem, and then they hired Edie to square everything away.
Right, well, you'll remember I was on the high school board, and Edie's predecessor, I personally walked out the door.
Yeah,
Because it was clear that we had 4 years of books that were effectively inauditable, and I wanted to call state police on them because I thought they were that bad. We did clean that up, as you recall.
yeah.
It's still, we ended up, because the special ed stuff is so far off.
Yeah.
Like 10 years later, we ended up with assessment by the state that we couldn't appeal for like $500,000, which I knew was wrong. Their numbers were wrong, because Bill James is basically a one-person accountant at the Department of Ed, another agency that's completely underfunded in terms of its financial controls.
I don't know what's gonna take to get their arms wrapped
There's an
around
old
that
principle of
finance.
management, which is called, there's no such thing as one error. Once you find one, you just tease it apart, and when you do, all sorts of fun stuff falls out. And this has been going on for at least a decade at the state level, and at least that long in not just our district, we're just the ones that get loud about it.
Wasn't Edie revered in her job?
Edie was so much more competent than her predecessor. Then she was doing fine until the e-finance thing happened, and until her disability really started getting the better of her. And again, she didn't have anybody to manage the conversion, and she was in her own way arrogant enough to think she could handle it in her spare time. And that was a terrible.
Well, Jack, I think we can talk about it all night long.
Well, I think I've given you all
We
the
have a
time.
big agenda, but
Yeah.
you need to, keep us informed of what's going on.
Yep.
I know that the town clerk is very concerned because of the tax bill. This will be
Well,
the second or third year we've had.
What's her deadline and what is the ramification of that, Joe?
I don't know what the deadline is, but if you don't get it on the warrant by a certain date,
We
then,
get a 40-day thing,
and then
Yeah.
something happens, and then you can't send, because you don't have an approval, so you can't set the tax rates, you can't set the bills out, so you have to set
Right.
an estimated bill, and then you have to follow it up with another one, which we have done, what, 2 years, Bill, was it? We've done that? Or was it 1 year?
2 years ago.
Yeah.
This year we got it.
Part of the one that happened before was due to the Act 46 forced conversion.
Yeah.
And that one, but I still take your point. It isn't the way you run a business.
I mean, we can't fix the school, but we'd just like to know what's happening with the tax bills, because it
So,
does affect us.
part of my delay has been that I wanted to give you a more complete picture, but I think perhaps the best thing to do is to let you know just how incomplete the picture was, and here you are.
Okay.
Well, we feel so helpless, I mean, is there
Yeah.
another suggestion that big term, big picture?
I would,
Consider?
at some point, I say this with some reluctance, this crap, I'm going to be getting off to high school first, so probably most of you know at the end of this term, because I've got a business I'm trying to rescue from the dead. And, but if it continued into another year, if the 3 towns, actually if the 4 towns affected, should explore their legal rights, because it seems to me that taxpayers are impacted.
I'd say hold back the funds or something until you actually get some legitimate
Again,
accounting. you know?
Bear in mind, the concern I have about that is fiscal shortfall, just means that, that the kids are affected. But I certainly, you know, I certainly think that, and also you have to remember your town clerk is also the clerk of our school district. So, yeah.
Well, they can't square it away. People start better talking about some charter schools, because this totally
Well,
ridiculous.
Charter schools, but you know, we still have to deal with the state. The fact is, we're doing a reasonable job, actually better than a reasonable job, of educating our kids, particularly in COVID. Our academic scores aren't what they were because this past year because of it, but they're still a whole lot better than anybody around you. And so we're educating kids. But the back office stuff needs to be cleaned up. I have a lot of confidence that Andy Haas is capable of doing it. I feel more confident in him than I have anybody since Johanna Harpster was on the superintendent. But we'll have to see.
Don't we have a deadline of January 20th for our warnings to begin?
You need to check that with Kim.
No, I've got it right here on my
Well,
calendar.
it's-
I think we should reject the
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
January
know-
20th deadline to get back to us.
I know Andy and his team are working through Christmas holidays, trying to clean this up. And they didn't make this mess, but they're doing their best. And
Okay,
I know that I'll be over there, because I've been over there every day this week so far, you know, last week, and probably be there every day coming. But so again, you know, I have to have a certain level of hands off. I can only do what I can do. I've literally been going through stuff line item by line item. But, you know, it's not like the select board where you can be involved at more granular level. There's certain things you can't do with $20 million budget.
okay, well, thank you, Jack, for coming in and telling us.
And Jack, you're right. 2 out of 3 of my kids got educated in Bellas Falls, and they did good there. So, I mean, you are correct.
I know one of them, and I get a lot of pride with that. All
Okay,
right,
well, thank you.
you bet.
All right,
Feel free to call me, by the way, anytime if you have questions.
the highway report, who's gonna give the FEMA recovery status?
I haven't heard anything from Pete.
The FEMA
Well, no,
status,
that's the status. The status is, it's gone to PA, the public assistance. She has formed the projects based on the information we have given them. And when we are proceeding with, the culverts that we hope to mitigate, replaced by mitigation, because they didn't wash down the stream, they're mitigation projects. And then Ledge Road is a completely separate project. We don't know exactly what she wants, because she hasn't finished and done all the detail of that work, and she hasn't come back to us. But what we expect to happen next is Michelle, after the first of the year probably, will be working on the numbers based on, okay, project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And she's gonna then put the cost and, you know, all the costs that is out there, figure out where all those bills goes, who goes with 1, who goes with 2, who goes 3. And in the meantime, Katie is doing, from the other side, based on our numbers, what the estimate should be, so that she'll have the estimates and the actuals. So we're probably looking at the end of January, maybe beginning of February before all that's done.
okay.
John,
Last meeting, John, you had said that she was gonna have the estimates done by that.
We ran into some, questions from her that took Bill a while to get back.
So that's what she's still working on.
And I think Bill has got everything back to her because she has not said she needs anything else.
she may have the estimates done next week, I don't know, but it
But
doesn't
that's,
matter.
I'm just asking, that's what she's still working on.
Yeah.
She would give us estimates. We need the actuals from Michelle, and I think we'd rather that she wait till next week. She's behind and would like to take this week off. So if you would get with her the first of the year, then
Yeah.
we could go on from there.
But is Katie gonna come back down
Not
to,
unless we want to
To figure it, okay,
We don't really need her at this point,
alright,
not that I know of, no.
alright, cause I know there was some question about how we recorded it and what we were gonna actually use of it. She was gonna look at that again.
Yeah, we returned everything that she needed to her.
Okay, there was a question, I guess, somebody asked a question about, administrative work getting paid, that's why it's on there?
Well, if you look at the minutes that I sent out to you in August, you directed that.
Yes.
Working on the FEMA would be Danny and myself and John.
Right.
But you didn't say John would be paid. We're paid. And you just need to say that John should be paid for that work that he's done since he was appointed to do it back in August.
Right, well, I assumed it was like, I mean, I think the board assumed when we did that there was.
But that's what, I think everybody assumed that, but the minutes do
I'm
not
sorry.
say and paid.
No, I did not know.
I didn't know that, I thought it was, an in-kind service by John because he was on the highway committee.
Well,
Nothing was said about payment.
all this
in
money
August.
will come back to you.
Pardon me?
You get reimbursed for everything that I do, so it's not costing the town 1 cent.
So, John, I went back and listened to those, to that recording of that portion of the meeting, and, to your credit, you're the one who brought this topic up to the select board and asked for the authorization to go forward.
Right.
And so I think the only missing piece here is the authorization for you to be paid,
Right.
which was not clear to me as a new select board member, not clear to Kathy. I don't know, to what extent people who were around, perhaps. I believe you did some work for the town similarly during Irene.
Yeah.
And you were authorized, Danny, and you and Bill were also authorized at that time to do that kind of work,
At
right?
that time, Bill was
Bill was.
not the administrator, so
Okay,
he had to be approved, and Michelle was the same way,
okay,
and they were approved.
And then that's why it was assumed that that's how it was gonna be, because that's how it was done when I ran.
well, I think that, you know, I agree with Bill in terms of people who are gonna get paid, and Kathy, too, in terms of just making it real clear whether it's an in-kind contribution or a paid position. I think the minutes should reflect that. I think that's all we're asking for. So do we need these minutes to reflect that?
If Kim were here, Kim asked, Kim would like you to authorize him to be hired to do that work, and I don't remember what we hired him at in Irene, but that's what I figured, it's the same work. If you don't know, but John has a lot of experience way back to when. He's really good at dealing with the PA, and he's really good at getting all the money out of them that we should get, and he knows how to go through the system, so it isn't, and he spent a lot of money, time at it, so he should be paid for it, and he should be paid well, so I don't know what that should be, but I think it was.
How is the hourly rate? Is it an hourly rate, John?
Yes.
How is that
$30
set?
an hour plus fuel.
And could you just educate us on how that hourly rate was established?
No, I came up with that rate, at that time, I was getting no benefits or nothing else, so that just,
That was done in Irene, correct?
That's what we was.
Yeah, so we took the same numbers that was done in
Okay,
Irene.
the same as Irene.
now, if the town was not being reimbursed for this, I'd gladly do it for nothing.
Right.
But it's time consuming, I spent a lot of time on it, there's a lot of time I spent, I haven't even charged for it. And so,
No,
Well,
I
one
don't.
thing is,
Go ahead.
he is treated as a contractor, am I correct?
Right.
I never knew, I knew it wasn't said in the meeting, but I know he presented the town with an insurance binder.
Yeah.
So that is assumed that he is a contractor for that work. That's my take on that.
I
So
know.
far as anybody sent in a rate, you hired him as a contractor.
Contractor.
I wasn't here, but what I'm hearing, I don't think anybody has a problem with actually having him do it. If I'm listening to this correctly, it just said the select board didn't think that they were informed about it, that this is how it was going to be.
I'm not sure.
I think it's just,
It should have been clearly
Yeah, I don't think it's any more, I don't think it's,
That's my argument.
I don't think it was that the select board was informed, I think what happened was, because it was, the same thing was done during Irene, everybody
Right.
assumed, and
right.
it wasn't put in there about compensation, but it was assumed that, everybody got paid, and you would, that there would be the same thing coming.
John.
I don't wanna talk to you like you're one of my students.
No.
You know what assumes me.
I know.
Yeah.
But a lot of us weren't on the board then,
No.
during our meetings.
No
I
one,
wouldn't know.
no one begrudged
And I
you.
tell you, this FEMA stuff, I dealt with this some with the fire department, it's tough. And everything has to, everything has to be done just right, or you won't get the money, it's as simple as that.
This is, we couldn't have a person that's better qualified to do the job than he's doing, than John is in that role. And so it's not anything to do with begrudging John, his talent, his pay. It's a matter of process. What is best practice for the select board? When we hire someone, it needs to be in the minutes, and it needs to state that we've done that, and we authorized it. And John would be the first to step up and say that about our select board.
Well, FEMA will ask you for that exact thing, so.
Exactly.
So how do we want to correct?
I'm
the
happy
minutes?
to move that
Make a
John be,
motion.
I make a motion that John be hired, that the select board authorizes the position of John as contractor at $30 per hour for the emergency work he's doing for FEMA. And the flood on July 29th.
Might want to state something, just saying that's clarifying the
Yeah,
minutes
of,
back then, because he was definitely gonna
He was
ask
August
questions.
2nd.
Okay.
I'm gonna say
thank you for that
retroactive to August
Yeah,
2nd.
yeah,
That sounds right.
Right.
Thank you, Dan.
right. Any other discussion? No.
That's $30 plus fuel.
Yeah, as it was. If there's no other discussion, the motion to,
I need a second.
yeah, we need a second.
Oh, second.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And if you have no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that takes care of that. Candy, you have anything else that you want to tell us about?
Yes, so I was asking my review to give a little more details on what we're doing, what we've accomplished, so. Some of the things that, need to happen is, first, Don Dougal came in a week and a half or so ago. He was approached by a landowner in town about, they were possibly thinking about selling or leasing a piece of land, and they were not. Don Dougal has, the Grafton Cares, I believe, that he's on, not Grafton Cares.
Improvement Association.
Improvement Association.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in that, so he gave me the,
You had to go past the uses,
yeah,
and you have to go past the uses to get to it.
which
It
is,
doesn't border uses.
It's not landlocked.
it's not.
No,
legal.
there's a right of way, but I mean, there's no 121 or Middletown Road or whatever, you gotta build
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So that's all I know about it.
No, you're Justin Rochelle, yeah, okay.
The other thing is, the other day when I was in the office, Kim and I were mentioning that, the part-time policy that reads $18 an hour, and then we voted during the flood, that truck drivers got 22. You gotta have Bill change that in there, and I think it should read that CDL truck drivers receive the 22, not someone just driving our pickup.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you guys ever found that the other day when I left or not.
We need to develop a 22 for truck drivers. So we need to do a formal policy so that we have it in the policy book.
okay.
Ivor pulled all the flags out of the cemeteries, and he put them in 5-gallon pails and brought them to the town garage,
Okay,
which is fine to be there, but if we leave them in 5-gallon pails, they're gonna get destroyed from, the exhaust and all that. So someone, probably on the cemetery committee, ought to get something to put them in that will seal them up. Better, so they're in a plastic tote or something. Right now, there's 2 pails?
Yeah.
2 pails that are
what
all
a,
you can get in.
what a plastic tote about so big,
I mean, at least as long as they are to lay down in there.
right, okay.
Cause if we just put them upstairs the way they are, by this time next year or next summer when you need them, they're gonna be,
Okay, I'll acquire a plastic tote. Town can-
yeah.
You might need to.
Yeah.
Two?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of flags.
You
Okay.
come up and look at them, and that's what you need.
Yeah. The garage, I don't know if the building committee wants to do it, or I know in the past, I've called the ones that worked on the garage when it was built, but the fan that removes the humidity, the CO2, all that, is not working with the louvered fan. The louvers are opening, but the fan is not kicking on. The last time they came, they went up and they did something to the fan, a reset or something, but I know I'm not going up there. It's in the very peak of the building. And I don't know exactly what they did the last time they were there to make it work, but that
Do
is,
you know who the company is?
I'd have to look it up. Which, I can't think of the name of the electrician out of rural that did the work when it was built. I'm not saying that they're the ones that you might want to keep using, because we've had a lot of electrical issues with the building. So you might want to find a different electrician that will do that stuff. I'd have to look in the book that come with the garage. I can't remember the name off the top.
Mechanical.
Black Mountain Mechanical.
Is that the one who did Black Mountain Mechanical?
You sure that was the electrical or the plumbing?
I can't remember now.
I didn't hear a name.
Black Mountain Mechanical, right? Is that the one with the van?
Possibly. That was the plumbers. I think it was Tyler was the electrician.
Could have been part of
We
it.
don't have,
I would like the town to find somebody different. We've had problems with both of them companies on the building when we've had issues since we've had it. So I have had Rob Halleck come and do a few little things. All electricians are very hard to get to show up.
Yeah.
That is in the peak of the building, so it's up there. There's one light out in the high part of the shop that Rob was gonna look at. He has not come back to look at it. It might be good to have them at the same time if they're gonna have to get one of them little lift things in there to reach, to do both. So that you're not having to come back with another expense of that buggy. But I know it's in the peak, the highest point of the building.
Who's gonna do this? I mean, the building committee, or should you do it, Danny? I mean, I don't know, let's
I don't know.
hire the person, not change the lights, but how are we gonna get a new mechanical man and a new electrician?
The plumbing we have used lately, a different company, last year when we had problems, and he was really good, and that was Decamp. But he's not an electrician, he's the plumbing, so I don't know who you get for electrician.
do you know anybody locally?
I mean, if Halleck will do it, it's fine, but I don't know how busy he is.
He hasn't come back for the light yet.
And it may be because it's not in his, with it being in the peak.
I don't know.
I think it sounds like a building committee project.
I don't mind
Yeah,
calling
this,
somebody if someone has
The
a name.
plumbing, the electricity, and new suppliers for that, the
Why don't
garage.
you just let Danny take care of it?
What?
Do it.
Because Danny's got highway stuff to do, and that's building stuff, it sounds to me like.
I don't know who you guys have for like, electricians for here or whatever, if they can handle it, or.
Well, Halleck has done a lot of the stuff here, right?
Gus.
Oh, Gus.
What we need to make sure is whoever does it is licensed, because I'm just not sure who's a master electrician and is supposed to be doing this stuff, but that's what we do. I'll look into it,
Okay.
because there's no sense in getting a building committee, because they're gonna go there and say,
No, I
oh
agree.
yeah, there's a vent, and they're not gonna go, you're gonna need a guy that come there, look at it, and say, this is what needs to be
You
done.
can find a new electrician and either a new mechanical guy, or use the same mechanical guy, either one.
I will.
I think it's about electrician on this. This is definitely electrical.
Okay.
I can get you some names too, Bill.
Okay, I'll keep you informed, but I don't know that we need to go down there and meet. I mean, you guys can if you want.
We just started, pretty much, I started on the paperwork, but started actually physically doing some of the passive risk management report that was issued 4 months ago during the flood that we had not done. And that was of all the little findings in the shop and in the field building of the way ladders were stored, fuel hose, stuff like that. I talked to Bill a little bit today about the fire alarm, the workplace posters, and I think one other thing on the list, was the hazard communication program that we have, so it needs to be created. So, fires, stuff in the building, it is within a couple of days we'll have that stuff done, you know, the way the drill press is secured and the ladders, that stuff is simple, that'll be done.
Then to be just, so I've talked to, Countryside.
Yeah,
They're gonna call and set up an appointment book to look at our fire alarm and the one at the garage. And then I put it on the calendar for things that need to be done. At the end of December every year, call Countryside or call and have it inspected, because the one at the garage hasn't been inspected since 2019, and ours hasn't been inspected since 2017. So we need,
They do fire extinguishers too, don't they? I think they do
No.
that. Who does the fire extinguishers?
that's the Travelers comes, does.
Okay.
no, it's different country for extinguishers.
Oh, they're, okay.
Probably myself the same.
Simplex.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In the mix of all that, we've been dealing with snowstorms and, broken trucks. You're receiving a bill for David's truck on Sander Parks that caught and broke the shaft off in the main gearbox. That is already obsolete on a 3-year-old truck, so we had to do a complete change on the gearbox. I don't know what the bill is, the computers were down today, I picked all the parts up. But everything is pretty much back together. There's some work on some plows of this last storm. I was asked today about a Fisher 9-foot Fisher snowplow that the town owns that came on their pickup, 2019 pickup, that we had never used. We only used the headgear and put the plow that we had before that on it. That is set up for soft roads. If the town was interested in selling that plow, I have no problems if the town wants to sell it. It's been setting up on one of the old bridges in the top pit since 2019. I think it might have got maybe a mile of snow plowing put on it when we first got it, we changed it. I know with the town, we can't just sell it. I think it has to be like a bid or something. Because it has to be open to the public about selling a piece of town equipment. You can look into that, but I think as long as it says that they're selling just a Fisher 9-foot plow blade, there's no headgear, nothing that goes with it. For a minimum of $1,000 bid, that being the minimum bid, I have no problem with seeing it go away.
So can we put that in the Grafton News bill? It's coming out soon.
Probably.
That would save some money. And, just give, what we need to do is what the actual year and make and model.
Yeah, I don't know if the plows actually have like a VIN number
I don't
on it,
either.
or I can look and see if that's on it, if it ain't frozen, the snow on it right now, because it's up there, but I don't foresee the town ever using that. We use a poly plow with a rubber cutting edge on the pickup, purposely for like the snowstorm we had Saturday.
Total grant money was, when you bought that, there was no grant money involved in it.
No, that was all out of
Oh,
county.
that's our money.
How do you use it, that's all?
No, I would mail out to all the people that we know that are in the snowplow business and then put it in the paper bowl.
Okay. We're just gonna ask for a bid, not a price.
I think you got.
Minimum of 1,000.
Minimum, yeah, that it has to be over, 1,000 or more.
Okay.
That you're not gonna accept something less than that. I mean, it's well worth $1,000, but we just let it sit there, it'll rot away. But, the plows aren't like the old trucks where you just, the headgear stayed on the truck and you change the plow. Now the headgear is attached to the plow, so it's not something that you easily switch back and forth, and we haven't switched it since the last truck.
What kind of plow is it?
I'm actually sorry, that plow was actually older than the 2019. That came on the first pickup we bought. We did not buy a new headgear with this pickup.
What kind of plow is it?
It's a Fisher, straight. I gotta check on it, I think it's a 9-foot. Wow,
So without the headgear on it, it's still worth 1,000?
yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Does anybody else have, Danny?
Danny, how's on, checking on the, getting a contractor to do the yellow line on the new
I
R121?
called one after the last meeting, and I called them 2-3 times since, and they still never called me back.
That's over now. You
Yeah.
let us know, you know, they're not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
I think we're done till spring, you know?
Good now, right?
Yeah, no, they never called back, I called and left them more messages, but.
Okay, thanks for trying.
Yeah. I know the last meeting we had the guardrails on there, and that price, I can't remember exactly what Kim said it was, but it ended up coming in under.
55, I think, we had 5,500.
Steel came in under?
No, the whole job was like 5,000, then they had to add the flaggers,
Right.
and then they ended up using a couple pieces of their rail, and it still came in
Under that?
right on that. I
Oh,
think it was like 53 something, so,
We'll see, material prices are out of this world right now.
yeah.
Okay, if nothing else, Danny, Kim, is Kim on, or does any, you need to, Kim's on the agenda, but do you know of anything, Bill, that she wants you to talk about? I don't.
Let me think.
I talked to her today, she didn't say anything to me.
What about the
No,
budget?
the only thing that I would say that if anybody owes her a report for the town report, that's the only thing I could think of that they need, the needs comes in. Pardon me?
Did she mention my name specifically?
No, but,
Yeah, no,
there's only three reports that need to be done, so.
Mr. Chair, should we go ahead? What about the budget item number 8? Is that something Kim was planning to?
No, that's something that was requested to be on the agenda.
Okay,
Oh, time out, what?
number 8?
Number 8.
Number 8, you guys are to do the budget discussion tonight.
Yeah, but
Decide
but
whether
not
to-
now, when it gets there, we do it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just wondered if Kim was part
No,
of
it has
that.
nothing to do with Kim,
Okay,
okay? All right, personnel policy. The personnel reviews for section 13 of the policy.
Section 13 of the policy has to do with written evaluation.
Correct.
Okay, and that's, and I wanted that on there because, as I'm in charge of the HR paperwork, and, I have not seen any, reviews of any employee as is required by the policy. And they need to be in writing so we can put them in the cabinet, so they'll be there for future reference.
oh, yeah, I see.
I did, and if it's just that, yes, that will get done in a time, that's all, I just want some action on it to make sure everybody understands, we need written reviews.
And let me explain how it's been done for the last 3 or 4 years. We have a form, it was duly approved by the select board, I'm not sure how many years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We used that form, when I did it with Alan did one of the employee, I did one, and then Alan and I met, and then we met with the employee, and we discussed what we thought, what he thought, or she, well, only he, and then it was signed off, and that's the end of it, and then it goes in the file.
Mhm.
So it's a very simple process, the forms are downstairs, and just do
Do we have any written reviews?
So Kathy, did you want to
Yeah, I think last week we interviewed, Danny and Bill. Basically went over their job description. They talked, each of them separately talked about what they do. We handed them the, sheet on goals that they can, get back to us, and we still have to meet again. So we're not done, we're in the process, and, following the policy, which probably have some changes in that policy.
Well, you need to use the forms that we have in the select board office.
So, yeah, so
What is that?
we have that, Joe, this is the form that has been used previously.
Right, and that's,
And Kathy and I will definitely go ahead and fill this out so that it can be included in the personnel file. When you look at it in detail, it does have some items on it that seem at the level of the two employees who report directly to the select board, namely Danny and Bill.
I think there are two forms. There are two. One was geared for administrator, I think one was geared for the employee, is that correct?
No,
I think
no.
that's the way
I
it was.
went over all the
You sure?
performance appraisals today and looked in the files and saw that the same form was used for
Okay.
everyone. The form that Kathy and I would like to propose that we adopt, and we can certainly do this in addition to the current form, is one that gets us to talk to the employees a little more about their responsibilities and their goals. And it also gives us an opportunity to seek and earn feedback about how they're doing toward those goals. Danny has submitted his goal report to Kathy and me, and he's also distributed it to Mike and to Dave, and as far as I know, Mike has already submitted his, and the only one we haven't received is Bill's.
The only thing that
I
I
have
have,
it done, but I haven't given it to you.
okay, but the only thing that I have, Suzanne, it's all well and good to have a new policy, but it's not been approved by the select board.
No.
And it has to be approved and voted by the board before it can be used. I mean, that's what it is. We spent a considerable amount of time with Alan, developing the one we had. It probably had 3 or 4 meetings, and so it's okay, but it has to be, those forms have to be approved before they can be used.
So, Joe, that's fine. I'll read you the word for word, the performance evaluation section of the current policy.
Has nothing to do with that. If you're gonna use the form, it has to be approved by the 5 members of the board.
We're in the process of the personnel policy review
But you're
process.
using the policy, you used it before it even was approved, and that's not right. You have implemented something that the board has not approved. I'm not saying it's a bad one, I'm not saying it's a good one, I'm saying it's not the policy of the board.
You sound angry.
I'm not angry, it's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, you just can't create forms and then use them, and the 5 of us, or the rest of us, don't see it. It's what I'm saying.
We're very happy to give
It's policy.
If you'd like to, the fact is that it says, the current policy says, in such a manner as the select board or the select board's authorized representative, namely the personnel committee, deems reasonable. So Kathy and I deemed this reasonable to structure a conversation with the employees using this form. And if, just like we did a few minutes ago, if we need to go back and retroactively approve the form, we'll certainly be willing to do that. But this was all done in good faith. And that's all I'm going to say. We're definitely, to be on the receiving end of that kind of what sounded like anger to me about this kind of.
It's not anger, it's a violation of what the board's policy has been. We all approve forms, regulations, ordinances, not after the fact, and we should get the forms, we should have discussion about it. That's my only anger about it, because it's not in keeping with what we do as a board. Now, if the board wants to change it, so be it. They can approve anything they want, but it's not the proper procedure. That's my only, and if we don't have the proper procedure in this board, then things are gonna get out of hand. That's all I'm saying.
And what do you think of the work of the Personnel Committee so far?
I have nothing, I have no comment on the personnel committee. Whether you do it, that's your business. How can I comment? I'm not part of the personnel committee. I'm only talking about the forms, that's all.
Well, we have,
If you want to have worksheets and you want to use your own worksheets, that's particularly fine. But the form, the final form, the one that you, with the employee, the one the employee signs, the one that goes here, has to be the form that's approved, that's in the files. Because those forms have been in there now for a number of years, and there's a continuity with those forms. You can look back and see the same question, what was answered in 2019, in 2020, and 2021. When you have different forms, you can't do that.
Suzanne, can I ask you a
Yes,
question?
of course.
Mike and Dave and Danny had their reviews. Is there a written review?
No, as Kathy mentioned, John, we have not finished that.
Okay,
We've
wonderful.
received their input, but we have not had our final discussion with them. So we haven't signed anything.
Okay.
And now what I'm learning, and I think it needs to be made very clear that Kathy and I are new on the Personnel Committee, that we have not done an egregious act here. We are very willing to cooperate and use the form that the select board has previously approved for the final copy that goes into the personnel file.
Well, I'm just curious
Thank
if a written one had been
Yeah,
written up on those three because they have been reviewed.
absolutely. That will
That's
definitely
fine.
happen.
So how do we want to handle this?
Pardon me?
What do we do? Are we gonna look at the form, or are you gonna use the other one? What is the board pleasure to proceed?
So I think what we were just asked to do, but maybe I misunderstood, is have this form be the one that we fill out and sign, and this one will go into the personnel file. And we can do that when we have our second meeting with the employees. We'll have it with Danny and Bill. Danny can have it with Mike and Dave. We'll use this form now that we understand how important it is to do that, for this to go into the employee file.
But I think
We will continue, I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
But I think what Joe is saying, the form we want to use has to be approved.
In the form, we'll
Yeah.
consider that a worksheet for now, and if we decide we want it to be an approved form, Kathy and I will discuss that, and we'll bring
Right,
it,
at a later meeting, if you.
we'll bring it to the select.
Please, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it, you should or shouldn't. If you want to change the form, by all means, let's change it, but let's have it submitted, give it to Bill, let Bill do it, and we can have an agenda on it, and we can
That
decide
sounds fine.
how, maybe there are suggestions to improve what you have done. I have no
Of
idea.
course, of
But you
course.
have to use the same one
I'm
for the
not
final.
arguing at all. Do you hear me arguing? I am not.
I'm not
I am
arguing, I just want to make sure that
I am
it's
accepting
statement
what
of
you are
procedure.
saying.
So the form that I filled out, I'm gonna do a different one now?
Well, what we'll do, Danny, is when we come and meet with you, now that we understand this need of the select board, when we come and meet with you, we'll bring the other form with us and we'll take care of it then.
Suzanne, the only reason I bring it up was the last meeting, a recommendation came from the personnel committee on what was to be given to the employees. And that was based on a verbal review. You know, I heard parts of that verbal review. I'd just like to see the written review of each employee so I can
Yeah, I
base my
understand.
opinion on
So
it.
you're saying about the increases? Okay.
No,
Everything. What you recommend, yeah, you recommended increases, that's,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So it was our understanding, John, that the increase was based on a cost of living increase, and that the practice of the town has been to offer cost of living increases to our employees. And so what happened in the meetings we had on December 9th is we notified Danny and Bill that we were going to recommend a 5.9% increase based on the COLA cost of living increase. So that's what happened.
But there was other, beyond the 5.9. And
Yes,
I have nothing against it, except I'd like to see the written review so I could go over it.
okay,
Why that happened.
okay,
That's all. I'm not complaining about what you're doing. I
okay, okay.
just-
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay, now what about the next one, the personal policy amendments, including section 28?
So, you each received a package on Friday that had in it, Danny, I believe you and Mike and Dave have copies of these
Yes,
already.
did you get the right one that I was up there?
on the table, right?
Yes, okay.
Okay,
What page you guys on?
okay, and so do you have, does anybody need an extra copy? Okay. So let me just go to that.
Actually, Susan, do you have an extra one? I'm not sure which one I have. There's so many things I don't remember which.
Well, Joe, it's interesting because I did leave it in your
Oh, I
box
know.
on Friday and
And I
noticed at
picked it up.
3:30 today, it was still there.
Was it still there?
Yeah.
Well, then I didn't pick it up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so in this packet, you'll see that we have 4 items. One is the action item list that we had from the last, the 12th select board meeting. And then we have, the second item is an option for the select board's consideration of comp time without replenishment. And then we have a draft of a grievance process that we were asked to come up with at the last meeting. And then we have the revised version of the personnel policy. And I'd like to go over that with you just in terms of the revisions that we made since the last meeting. And these we were asked to make, and I just want to make sure that you're aware that we have done so. So we're following the action item list, and we are looking at the personnel policy. So Kathy, is it okay if I just step through these and you'll comment? Okay.
Yeah, I think, which one and on what page?
Okay, so the first one is on page 3, section 1. And on these copies, I have highlighted the areas where we have made changes since the last meeting, so it'll be easy for you to pick up. The first action we had was to add sections 29 and 30 to Addendum B, which is the elected official sign Addendum B, benefits covered in sections 18 through 27, 29 through 30. We also did that on page 3, section 2, and wherever it appeared. Now we're turning to page 5, section 7, hours of service. There was a lot of discussion in our last meeting about hours of service. So we revised the wording just a bit to read hours of service for persons employed at town hall or other town offices shall be 40 hours with 30 minutes paid time allowed for lunch. And this is the operative phrase, unless otherwise set by an action of the select board. So both of those were changes that were recommended. That's action 2 and 3. And then we were also asked to add regular hours for highway department are 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. Okay? The next change we were asked to make is in section 13, page 8. And relative to the discussion we just had about performance evaluation. The original version of this proposed policy had quarterly reviews provided. We got some feedback about this, and also I want to point out that I did a briefing with Rich on this policy just to bring him up to speed. And so with that input, we changed the wording from quarterly reviews to interim feedback provided. So as not to lock anyone into a quarterly meeting, and also not to call it a review, which can get confused with the annual review, but rather to call it feedback. That gives us an opportunity to communicate with employees on a more frequent basis how they're doing against their goals and how they're doing in their performance. And then, as you'll note, in the proposed policy, it's actually clearer than in the current policy exactly what Joe raised as a concern and what John is also looking for. The select board and the signed copy will become part of the employee's personnel file. The next section is section 13, is section 23, page 17. This is the overtime and compensatory time off section, and we had discussion enough at the 12-6 meeting that we decided to strike the words "in 1 calendar year" and strike the sentences "earned comp time must be used or paid by the end of the calendar year, no carryover." It didn't work in that particular place on page 17 because this proposed policy provides employees the opportunity to replenish their comp time and not be paid cash overtime. So that wording about end of calendar year and no carryover actually appears after on the top of page 18 in a more appropriate place. An employee must choose to be paid overtime or replenish comp time in any given period during a calendar year. The balance of earned comp time will be paid at the end of the calendar year, no carryover. That is really the only change that Kathy and I are recommending in this proposed policy to the current policy. Now later on tonight, we're going to look at an option that has no replenishment, but this is the recommendation that we made. Okay, and then in sections 29 and 30, on pages on page 19, this is section 29. We changed the wording in accordance with the discussion we had at the meeting on 12/6. Any employee who wishes to report harassment should file a complaint with any member of the town of Grafton Select Board. So we changed that in section 29 and in section 30, page 21. Any member of the town of Grafton Select Board. Okay. We had a couple of other things pop up during the interim time, and one was from our contact at the LCT, who encouraged us to, on page 23, strike the sentence, "The town need not utilize this termination process, but may take whatever action it deems necessary to address the issue at hand." VLCT is reconsidering this wording in this particular section, employee termination process, and their best practice now is to delete that section. Okay, and so with that is a summary of the changes that the Personnel Committee, based on listening to the Select Board and from the last meeting. Are there any questions or edits or comments about that?
We're gonna do a draft of the Addendum C, the grievance process.
Yeah.
So we had all the steps. Is that in their packet?
Yes.
Good share.
So now you can just, to Kathy's point, if you just turn to this draft of the grievance process. This is a proposed addendum to the personnel policy. It would become Addendum C, and it outlines through the steps associated with the grievance process. This was a recommendation we got from the 12/6 meeting. We consulted with our HR person at Tacit, and we have developed this grievance process.
And the reason we put the steps in is that oftentimes, I'm not gonna say oftentimes, there could be an occasion where an employee would come to the select board member with either harassment or discrimination or sexual harassment, and the person listens, but they don't follow any of the steps. Or they'll say, well, I think I've decided it's not worth bothering. So that's why we wanted to put the steps down.
So this is, when we change that wording to may bring a complaint to any member of the select board, this is what the select board would be committing itself to. If you are the recipient, if any of us is a recipient of one of these complaints.
Well, I'd like to have an explanation on number 2. I understand the first part of it, but are you saying that each of the select board member has to go on the online anti-harassment training?
Yes. So this is a recommendation from VLCT. This helps all of us understand what it means to be harassed and what the steps are if you are hearing about this, how you listen to it, how you report it. And this training is provided online by VLCT. So there's no, class that we have to attend, but it would be an online training course. It takes between 30 minutes and 1 hour for each member of the select board to participate in. It is a big responsibility to be the recipient of a harassment complaint. And this ensures that each person has common knowledge about what that means and how to handle it.
Rich, did you take this course at school? Yeah, we had it too.
I've been through so many of these things, I can't keep them straight, but I think so. I don't think it was too daunting, if I recall.
Okay. So this is, what we'll be asking approval for is the policy with the addendum C for the grievance policy. And now we're going to turn to what John asked us to look into, which is the draft comp time without compensatory, without replenishment. So you have a page of that on that in your packet, and it's highlighted what the change would be. I just want to point out once again that comp time is a very meaningful and important benefit to our employees, and that we should consider any change in that context. Employees may earn comp time up to a maximum balance of 80 hours in 1 calendar year. Earned comp time must be used or paid by the end of the calendar year. No carryover Within any single pay period, an employee who reaches a maximum balance of 80 hours of earned comp time will be paid overtime compensation for any additional overtime hours. I just want to make a couple comments and then turn this out over for your discussion. Comp time is earned when our employees work overtime. They are working to earn their comp time. When they convert overtime to comp time, overtime hours worked to comp time, they earn comp time at the overtime rate, which is 1.5 times. Once they have accumulated that earned comp time at the 1.5 times rate, they then multiply that by their regular rate to get the pay. 1.5 has been calculated into the hours accrued. The second point I want to make is this. In our current policy, we provide for replenishment. It is administered currently using replenishment. What the proposed policy does is codify what actually occurs and has occurred since 2018 and 2019, when the previous select board approved this policy. And what this means is that at the employee's choice, when they work overtime and they accrue comp time, they can accrue comp time by working overtime, and then they can get paid in comp time until they reach that 80-hour maximum. And then, as they earn then they cannot take any more comp time paid until they earn more comp time. So they earn more comp time, and then they can take more comp time pay. So that it keeps fluctuating from 80 hours, and then you use that up, and then you earn more, and then you can use that up. And that's why you see on the warrants that we sign, the compensation time accrued is greater than 80 hours. In this proposal, without replenishment, overtime will be converted to comp time to a maximum of 80 hours. And then from that point on, there's no more replenishment. You can use it, you can take time off and be paid in comp time, but once they get to 80 hours, that's done, and you have to accept the cash overtime. The reason comp time was allowed by the Federal Labor Standards Act for public sector institutions only was to alleviate the high cost of overtime and to substitute time off as in lieu of overtime pay. So with that said, John, since you wanted us to look at this policy, maybe you'd like to kick off our discussion about it?
Well, I think you just explained it, because I would like to see it. I just can't, you have, most employees have 4 weeks vacation, 2 more weeks of comp time, sick days, I don't remember how many there are, but when do we work? I mean, there's quite a lot of things that have to be done, and I would think that this is a pretty good balance of time that they can have off during the summertime, but you can't take it during the winter. So I just cannot see extending that 80 hours to 170, 180 in some cases, what has been done. So that is my reasoning. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, I agree with John.
May I ask what kind of work you feel is not being done because of time off?
Well, I think there's a lot of work that is put off that could be done, more work, could be done. The grants have reached a point where, I don't think you can do any more of them, and we can probably get more grants. I think there are a lot of times where you can't do things on the roads because there's only 2 of you or 1 of you, so you need 3. because somebody has taken that time off. Don't you think that is enough time off during the year?
Well, I just heard a comment over and over that work isn't being done and needs to be more work done. I was just curious of what work is being felt that wasn't being done. The highway crew does more things now than they have ever done in the past. So I just wanted to know what was being felt that was not being done.
Well, the mowing didn't finish, there's one
Dave, how much mowing did you do? 2 passes almost on everything. Got done.
Well, last I looked up Turner Hill, it wasn't done.
You went up there and
I'm not Turner Hill.
but you also think that that was something that the highway crew never used to do. It was always bid out.
I only do one pass up Turner Hill until I get to the top, because I cannot boom out without.
I just think there's plenty of time off during the year.
I just want to comment on plenty of time off. In 2002, the personnel policy instituted comp time, and it was for overtime, what they called actually worked. In 2016, holiday pay was added to the calculation of comp time for overtime, calculation of overtime for the purpose of using it as comp time. In 2018, the definition was expanded to include sick leave, vacations, comp time itself, and paid holidays taken during the same work week shall be counted as time worked for the purpose of computing overtime. When our employees fill out their timesheets and they count sick leave, vacations, comp time, and paid holidays to calculate their overtime, they are following our policy.
As far as the comp time, and a little bit that I'm familiar with it, but I guess I am fairly familiar with it. When you calculate your 40 hours, every place I'm familiar with, the only exception is if it was like a holiday, one of the major holidays that came up, the 5, Christmas, whatever. I will say I'm not familiar with these guys, but these guys specifically, their industry does. This may be the norm, I'm not sure, but I've actually never experienced that policy before, that you can take, say, 3 sick days in a row, then still be eligible for overtime after that. I've never seen that, but I'm not saying the industry doesn't bear that, I really don't know. I guess my question would be, during the summer, just to throw out a scenario, I mean, Danny has responsibilities that he has. If he can't fulfill that responsibilities because someone asked for the time off, I'm assuming he said, geez, I'm sorry, so-and-so, you can't have next week off because we have to do X, Y, Z. If the jobs are getting done, and if the policy is historic, and it's gonna leave bad feelings, I guess the bottom line is, are we satisfied with what's happening during the summer? I guess that really cuts through the chase, and if we are happy with what's happening during the summer, I guess we move forward. If we're not happy with what's happening during the summer hours, I mean, during the winter, that's a no-brainer. At the snow on the ground, you guys have to be out there, and that's it. But
that's why you see a lot of time in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
If it's storming, it doesn't matter if you wanted the day off or not, you have to be at work. So
I think that's kind of the answer then, yeah.
The time is always, there's very little time, vacation, comp time or anything that is used in the winter months. Now, I'm gonna send a message to Susan that I'm planning to take off, Thursday this week. But if it storms,
Yeah, for sure.
it's, you know, it's too bad, I gotta come in.
Right, yeah.
Now, it's always been in the summer, you know, and I've said this before, that we were asked to schedule our time off. So if I schedule time off in the summer and it storms, am I expected to come in? I've canceled vacations this summer twice. I've done it during Irene to be here at my job. But we are limited to when we can use our vacation. And I've said many times that if I'm gonna be forced to schedule a vacation time in advance, that I'm gonna stop canceling my vacations, you know? I've come close to not getting refunds back from places because it's so tight, where you gotta explain to them so you get it back.
No, I
But if they're
understand.
gonna be pushed to take and schedule it, then I'm gonna say, well, I'm sorry, I scheduled it and I'm gone.
Well, I think like any relationship in business, I mean, it has to work for both parties or it doesn't work. I mean, that really is the bottom line. I think when I was reading through this, the only thing my real hang up was I almost couldn't believe what I was reading, that you could calculate in the process of the vacation time, the sick times to arrive at that. I mean, where I come from, I mean, you work your 40 hours and you're eligible for overtime after that, and that's it. But I haven't been around long enough to say that, or pay attention long enough to what goes on in town to say I agree with the policy or not, because I honestly don't know. I mean, if we have no complaints that the work is not getting done, then I think that's a complaint. But if we think the work's getting done, I don't know what to say about it.
I mean, obviously, there was when the definition of how to calculate overtime include these other forms of being away from work, there would have been a ramification of that in terms of how much time could be used in any given week to reach 40 hours, so that then you'd have overtime. And I'm just wondering, Bill mentioned in the minutes, in today's minutes, that he and Robin wrote the 2018 policy, and he shared with Kathy and me the notes that he and Robin had discussion. And it reminded me that that we had these notes as part of our interview with Bill. And it says, Robin asked the question, why count time off, sick leave, vacation, holiday as work when figuring overtime? And the simple answer was because the personnel committee wants it that way. And then it went on to describe the fairness issues that had to do with using these various times off. But the simple answer was because the personnel committee wants it that way. So Joe, I think you were on the personnel committee at that time. Can you shed some light on the question that's being raised about how sick leave, vacation, and holiday, as well as comp time, worked into the calculation?
I don't remember, to be honest with you, I don't. I know it was discussed, and I don't know why it was changed, or I just don't, I can't remember.
The only other thing that stuck out at me too is, what a nightmare it must be figuring all this stuff out.
Oh, my goodness, there's Michelle. It can't, yeah.
Now, the fairness issue is this. I'm giving you back my comp time. So instead of taking eight hours of pay, I'm giving you back 8 hours. Why is that not working? Why isn't it the same with working? You're not taking any sweat off your brow. You don't need a break, but you are using that time, and you don't know when you're going to be called back in after during that week. So if you use comp time on Friday and then something happens and you got to work Saturday, you're not going to pay them overtime to work Saturday?
Well, no, you have to pay.
Okay,
That's what that's there for.
That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. The 4th of July week is a short week. So 4th of July week, and I take Tuesday off too. But then I gotta come back work Sunday and Saturday and Sunday. So I only get a 40-hour week because I have to work Saturday and Sunday. No, I gave you back Monday and Tuesday.
Well,
And so it's just out of fairness, that's why I suggested that it be changed to include it. I couldn't understand why you would not include it. I get it, it's a great benefit, I get it that it's a great benefit, but if you're gonna give them time off of being comp time, Why is that not comp time? I don't understand. You cannot rationally explain not counting a day off for being sick or a day off because you took a holiday from a day of work. You cannot rationally explain it because they're giving you back. That if they're getting $20 an hour, they're giving you back $160, and then you're making them work 2 more days.
I guess, like I said, well, that's my frame of reference is just what I know. And during the work week, except for major holiday, you put in your 40 before you get the overtime. And like I say, again, I'm not saying these guys are right or wrong, and maybe that's what the industry is. I can just say what my frame of reference is from.
Well, I don't know,
Well,
and exactly, and Michelle Dollar talks about her husband, supervisor, but wait, he takes Friday off because he's stressed, but he has to go back in on Saturday. They don't pay him overtime for Saturday. That he is just putting in his 40 hours. I don't know. And there's nothing magic about it. It's just that's the way I felt when we were discussing it, and that's what I told Robin and agreed with or something.
Yeah, and I actually, now that Bill mentioned my mind gets
Triggered, yeah.
triggered, and I think we had that discussion exactly of because of the situation of the employees that we have and what their work is done. And I think that's why it was put in there.
So if that's the reason why it was put in there, I think we have to somehow resolve this dilemma that we have given employees a benefit that we just went over the rationale for back in 2018. If we agree that that's the right benefit we want to provide our employees in terms of defining how overtime is computed, then we can't, on the other hand, say that they're not working enough to get things done. They're not enough hours to work to get things done. Because that could have been, or should have been, a consideration at the time of adopting this definition. And it's also, I think, a question to what extent people have received feedback that the work is not getting done. And that relates to the performance evaluation that we just talked about. There needs to be feedback. So to my mind, the select board has this dilemma. The reason there may not be enough time to work is because of the very policy that we have in place.
I don't know enough information to make an intelligent opinion. Because I've been around here for a month, for one, or 3 meetings, for one thing. I mean, you guys often get complaints that this isn't getting done, or that, I haven't. Yeah.
Well, just remember though, whatever happens here, we do not have to approve this tonight.
No.
This is not, the evaluations have to get done for the budget and various other things, but this doesn't have to, this is something that we can sleep on and discuss. This is not, there's no deadline here.
Well, there is a deadline in terms of, at the end of the calendar year, we go into another pay year, and we need to make a decision before that, whether we're gonna have replenishment or not, Joe. We do have, we don't have to do anything tonight, but we do have to do something before the end of the calendar year.
Well, we gotta remember that, the calendar year, not the fiscal.
This particular year is when at the end of the year is when the comp time resets to 0, and we're either gonna have a replenishment policy or we're not. And,
Well, since there are no more meetings here, you have to.
no, there will be one more meeting. There is another meeting of the select board, isn't there? Oh, no, there's just one more pay period.
January 3rd.
Third is the last,
Yeah.
is the next meeting.
I always think whenever I'm thinking about something, whatever it happens to be, but what's our competition doing?
So the VLCT people say that we have what's known as a generous definition of how to compute overtime, that more typically what's used to define overtime are vacations and paid holidays. Because sick leave and compensatory time are already a benefit, that it's adding two more benefits to calculate another benefit. You know what I'm saying? So, sick leave and compensatory time would be less likely to be in other definitions of how to compute overtime, but for the reasons that Joe and Bill just stated, we have it in our policy.
So it's typically done around the area of some of these small towns. Would that be a reasonable compromise for everybody?
Well, we haven't done the analysis about what difference that would mean. I mean, I did, with Kim's help, I did do an analysis of what it would mean, a financial impact on our overtime budget, not to replenish, and I just wanted to share that with you. Kim and I just finished this up this afternoon. Okay. So this is, at the top line, you'll see this is an illustration of the impact of comp time without replenishment on overtime pay. This is not a real calculation. It is uses data from the check stubs of our employees as of 12/17/21. But it is an illustration of how no replenishment would work. And so you'll see in the yellow highlighting that the impact of total overtime without replenishment at 80 hours is an overtime cost to the town of about $19,000. And if you look at the way things are currently done with replenishment, the overtime, the dollars of overtime are about $16,000 plus about $3,000 over on the left-hand side, because obviously the hours of comp time paid would be less at 80 than it is when you have the replenishment factor. So the fact is that it's about a wash, really, of limiting the comp time to 80 hours or leaving the replenishment factor. So it only means that with the numbers working out about the same for both approaches, I mean, the thing the select board needs to then, we need to think about is, do we want to take a step toward making our comp time policy more conservative, and limit the amount of comp time to 80 hours a year, or do we want to leave it like it is and not take any step?
And as far as all of the bookwork goes, limited to 80 hours, does it save on the administrators?
Oh my goodness, yes, that's an excellent point, Rich. The administration of the replenishment is very complex. I mean, Michelle does it like a science, right? But it is very complex administratively.
Correct me if I'm wrong, employees speak up. Basically, the only thing you lose is extra time off, but you gain it in pay.
Right.
Yeah. So the downside is you have less off time,
Mhm.
but you get more pay.
I'd rather have the off time than.
Well, that's what I'm trying to point, is that's, I think, what the employees would rather take the time off to do their second jobs, or time off to do other things, rather than the money. I mean, I think that's what it boils down to, if you wanna take all this other kind of stuff, and the heart of the matter is that's what it means.
Yeah,
Because they don't lose anything. We're not taking away a benefit in reality, but the benefit is for them that you could have an extra day to go fishing or work outside or whatever you want to do.
Or go away on vacation for 3 days or whatever, you know, that's what I did last year. I took every Friday off.
Right.
as I said at the very beginning, Joe, you're absolutely harking right back. This is a very important and meaningful benefit to our employees. And comp time off is something that they value almost more than money.
Well, you have 3 employees here. One doesn't take comp time and the other ones do.
Well, Mike takes less comp time than.
Well, I mean, Mike takes the overtime, basically.
Yeah.
And we changed.
I don't know. But that has been the way it has been.
Yeah. So I think that's the crux of the decision. I don't know, John, how you're thinking about it now that now we've been through this discussion and we've listened to the different points of view. Where are you coming out on it?
I think I'm coming out, I'm the only one that wants this. So, I just don't know if you have to discuss it anymore.
Well, as Joe says, we don't need to
Well, you
make a
do.
Yeah, you do.
decision.
You do.
I'm kind of on the fence, because I thought there would be a savings, or a more cost of the town, or savings, I wasn't sure, but actually monetarily, there is no difference.
It's pretty much a wash.
Really, the
Now-
question is, the question comes down is that, then that's more days off, which is fine. Does that have an influence on performance and doing jobs that we need to do that can't be done because you'd have an additional 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 days off, whatever the case may be? That's where it comes down.
But I think there are 2 other points. The other point to add to yours is our number 1, Rich's point about administration. We are spending a lot of time administering a policy that includes replenishment. And the other is, if Kim were here, is she online?
No.
I think that based on the conversations I've had with her, what we're trying to do here is find a balance between what's agreeable to the taxpayers and what's agreeable to our employees. And so I can see the point, I can see John's point, and I can see Kim's point of taking a step in the direction of drawing back our comp time a little bit in order to make it not such an eye-popping policy, as Rich pointed out it is when you read it for the first time. I mean, we could increase the comp time pay to 120 hours and still have it a flat. We could do that, and we might actually compromise between having a replenishment policy the way it is right now, and having it fixed, but at a slightly higher rate, like 120.
I wanna say Rockingham, we could build 120 hours of comp time.
With no replenishment.
With no replenishment, we could go up to 120 with no replenishment. I mean, I'm throwing that out there as an option, just kind of compromise between the two, the balance that we're trying to strike.
You're sort of trying to say you go to 120, from 80 to 120?
Still have it fixed, but go from 80 to 120.
Why not go to 100, or why 120?
It's another work week. 80 plus 40.
And then it's capped at that, so you go over it.
I mean, I'd be amenable to that. I mean, how about you, Kathy?
Yeah. We kind
How would the,
What
how
does
would
the,
you
yeah, I
guys
was gonna
feel?
say, what does the town
Yeah,
council
how
think
would you
about
guys
it?
feel about it?
I like it
You
the way
guys
it
as
is.
the bosses.
You like it the way it is?
I like it the way it is.
Yeah.
It gives me the choice whether I wanna take any pay or time off. So,
Dave?
I'm good, bud.
Okay.
Use what I use.
of, the way it is now.
I use my usually, this year I ended up building another week because of
Yeah.
the flood. And I worked, because I was gonna take every Friday off until I used it up. And I ended up building another week, so I did another week because I worked for the flood.
I don't know, Rich, what do you think about it?
Well, I think bumping it up to 120 hours sound like a reasonable compromise to me.
How do you feel about it, John, instead of going back to the way it is, just go up
My
to
initial
120?
response to this was 0 comped up. And I said, no, I'll go to 80. That's where I stay at 80.
I don't like the replenishment idea. It bothers me. So I guess I was in John's corner. But I guess I could go with the 120 if there's no replenishment, perhaps, as I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I could do
The replenishment is a nightmare for everybody.
it is.
And not for the employees, but for office and
Yeah,
keeping record track and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense that you just get more, you know what I mean? It should have an end.
and then it creates this remaining liability, because of the carryover and so forth. I can, do a quick calculation of 120 and tell the board.
So historically, how many hours are they? Are we close to the 120? Historically?
You have the flexibility through based on the Fair Labor Standards Act to offer up to 240, but you can offer lower than that. I think there was a misunderstanding at one point that we had to offer 240. You can offer up to 240.
But you also have the opportunity under the Fair Labor Act of not to give them any time off and pay them for the compensatory.
Yes, yeah.
And you have that too.
Yeah.
Or you have an opportunity, say, middle of April, it's mud season. Well, it's not quite mud season because you'd want somebody around to do something, but it's nice out, but there's no, and you just tell everybody, you take 40 hours off, you use your 40 hours of comp time. I mean, that's all in the Fair Labor Act too. So you don't have to allow them, you have to allow them up to 240 comp time, but you don't have to allow them the time off. You can pay it for them, or you can tell them when they gotta take the time off. That's all part of the Fair Labor Act. And you talk about it as a benefit to the employees. Yeah, it is the way it works out, but the whole thing is designed as a benefit to the employer so that he can have them work overtime and then give them comp time off.
Absolutely, I mean, Bill, that's the whole idea.
It's a two-way street. I mean,
The
it's not a
creation
one-way
of comp
street.
time was for the
And it should
benefit of
be.
the employer, so that you
Yeah, it
wouldn't
should
have
be.
to
Yeah,
cash
it should.
out money.
But what Bill says is absolutely correct. When business slows down, that's when you take your comp time. I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's what we should do.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying that's the Fair Labor
Yeah.
Act. I mean, let's get the
Yeah.
whole thing on there.
Well, in a lot of ways, that would be better. If you could have, if you had a week, there was nothing to be done, you could give all the employees off for the week, and then everybody then you wouldn't have to have one person working two people working or whatever.
As
Yeah,
long as the
Joe,
flood didn't
if
come
you-
along.
if you-
No, I mean,
And if
No,
we more work
that would be
here,
a nightmare.
I mean, the problem is that you never know, there's always a disaster, a tree falls down or something like
Yeah.
that, but.
Well, it's like
Okay,
this
I'm
coming
about
week,
to get this
we'll
done.
be working home Christmas, you know, we won't be with our families, we'll be out plowing.
No, I understand that, and I understand the job, and
Yeah.
Don and I have talked about it, and basically, after, when winter comes, you don't have a life. And that's what it is.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna dictate what our life's gonna be in the summer with our time. That's the way I take it,
What, say that again, David?
that you as a board will dictate what we do with our time, when we do it in the summer months.
How does that happen?
Well, like you're saying, you could say that you guys are gonna.
No, I'm
take-
saying-
Oh, no, I don't think we should.
I'm not saying-
Susan, what Bill's saying, no, hey,
No, no, no.
what Bill's saying
You could
is
do that, I
fair.
didn't say you should.
No, listen to me. Don't try to bully me, pal. When, what Bill is saying, this is the fair labor law, how it's written. No one here, what I heard, is saying that's where the direction we should go down. Matter of fact, I would not say that's the direction we should go down, because I don't think we'd get it in return on the other side, what we need you guys to do. So I'm not in no way saying, and I don't think that's what Bill was saying either. He's saying this is a law, how it is set up. And what I'm saying, working in the manufacturing, when most places don't have comp time, they have you time and a half, that's what you get paid. You work, you get paid, that's it. Some shops do have comp time. And when business goes slow, they'll pat you on the shoulder and say, hey, take off next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or whatever. They totally dictate to you what you take. Again, I'm not saying we should go down that road, but this was not, I don't think, fully designed at the time when it was passed, that 10 years ago or whenever it
No,
was.
3 years ago.
No, the whole.
You mean for the comp time for the town of Grafton?
Oh, no, for how this comp time is not
Exactly. Yeah, I
something
know.
that's
It's
been around for
longer than
decades.
20 years. It's been in Grafton for 20.
But this, it could be, yeah. This wasn't for the employees solely in mind. I mean, it was,
It was so that you could keep control of the cash cost of overtime by giving people something desirable, namely time off.
yeah,
But it equals the same, it's still at 1.5 rate. So going to 126 raises the $8,514 cost of comp time paid to $12,770. And, yeah,
and we want to find a balance that
we want to
we
find.
can
a
live
balance.
with,
Yeah,
it's reasonable for us, and obviously works for them.
yeah,
I mean, we need them as much as they need us, you know?
yeah. I think that's right. So this is, so I'm now gonna do the calculation for the, so if we had 120 fixed, the, because it just so happens that if you look over on the left-hand column, the hours of accrued comp time, you can see that if you allow 120, you're only going to be 19 and a half off of days and 12 and a half off of bills. The only one that's really going to have a reduction in that is Danny, which is at 92.75. And, yeah, and Mike, if he takes his full 120, is going to have a greater amount than you're getting now. So that sum then is, so that's the hours overtime with the 120 maximum. I mean, if this is something we want to do, which I think it's a reasonable compromise, I really do. I hear what Danny is saying, I'm not diminishing what Danny is saying, is that he likes it the way it is. But, and I think that part of our job as the select board is to find a balance. And Danny and his team have been fully informed about this whole process the whole way, right, Danny?
Yep.
And so it's just, I don't know. Joe, do you think we should try a motion?
Well, I mean, at some point, we can't stay here all night discussing it, so somebody make a motion and let's see what happens.
I'll make the motion,
That,
it'd be 120 max,
that and with no,
with no replacement, it'd be fixed.
okay.
so which one of these are we talking about? This one on this page?
So we're talking about Bill,
No, I know, which one is Kathy talking about? This one?
this one, comp time without replenishment.
Okay,
And in that one, we would change the number 80 to the number 120.
It would be exactly the same bill, I think, except 80 goes to 120.
Exactly,
No carryover.
no carryover.
The only thing is, within a single pay period, an employee who reaches the maximum balance of 80 hours,
Within,
that has to be changed to 120, correct?
the whole thing would be 120.
And then anything over that, then it'd be paid overtime.
That's right.
Stupid
So
question.
I second the motion, sorry.
I was gonna say stupid question, but maybe you can we try for one winter season and one summer season, see if it works out?
Well, you can always do this, and next year when you review it, you can change it again, you can change the policy, you know.
To the, yeah, we can definitely, because.
This is not
these
forever,
numbers
you
are
can
all
change it.
guesstimates.
I'm not saying you should.
Yeah, no, I'm just, if it, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying at this point.
This doesn't take
Dave?
place until.
Yeah, one question.
It'll take
You
place
guys
in
passed
January.
this tonight.
This year.
We already got some comp time accrued.
Well, it doesn't affect this year.
No, so that's right.
That's just what I
It
wanted.
doesn't affect this year, this only affects starting January 1.
So the remaining, I spoke with Kim about this today. Her recommendation is, and mine too, and I'm bringing it up to the select board now, is you see the far right corner, the far right column called dollars remaining. And the comp time remaining. That's the comp time remaining as of 12/17.
Right.
These numbers will change by 12/31, especially after a snowstorm, et cetera. The comp time remaining will be grandfathered. If we go to no replenishment, the comp time remaining as of the end of the calendar year 2021 will be grandfathered until 2022, and then no carryover after that. We'll have to have a separate motion on that.
So they're gonna, so the 120 goes along.
No, okay, let me.
Assuming you pass the 120 and you're gonna have the carryover,
No, just the total amount, Joe. So it's just, it won't get added to the 120, it'll just be grandfathered. So in Mike's example, for example, the 70, he'll be grandfathered that 70 hours at 1826. See where it says dollars remaining?
yeah, I say that, but I'm a little confused. How does it get paid out? They take the time off, they get the money?
No, they can't, they have to get the money.
Oh, the money, okay, that's all I understand.
No, we're not gonna add it to the 120.
No, that's fine.
They get the
That's what I'm
money.
confused about.
Yeah. I mean, we can have, I'm saying that's what Kim and I talked about today.
No, I
To
understand.
your earlier point, we gotta have the select board agreement on that.
So is that a motion?
So do you need a motion?
So we have a motion on the floor for
Okay.
120.
Okay.
do we have a second? to
I
that?
seconded it.
Kathy seconded. Kathy made it, Suzanne seconded. Do we have some discussion on this motion?
I think it's been discussed. No, I guess I'm fine with it. My head's spinning a little bit with all these numbers.
It's a lot of thinking.
We could make it pending a subsequent analysis.
No, I think we should, I'd like to see into the motion that we will review this at the end of the year and see how it works.
At the end of fiscal year
Yeah,
22.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I
I'd like
like that.
to add that to the motion.
Yeah, I agree.
So that
Sounds reasonable.
if the employees are not happy with it, if we're not happy with
Sounds
it,
reasonable.
and it doesn't work, it forces us to go and review it again,
Right,
rather than just assuming it's gonna be there.
I
Okay,
agree.
I don't know when you mean, what, end of what year?
fiscal
End
year
of
23.
2022. At this, when we do our budgets and stuff like that, we would review the personnel policy again to make a change.
Okay,
This will be
But
in,
it would force us to look at the personnel policy, whether we want to change it or not, but it would be an action item that we would have to do in November or December or whatever the case might be.
right,
Are we talking 2022 or 2023?
Well, it would be
fiscal year 23,
20, yeah,
January to July 2022, and July to December 2022, fiscal year 23.
no, I didn't understand that.
no,
No,
Are you gonna, let's just leave it simple, you're gonna review it December of
Exactly.
2022?
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, now that's added to the motion, you have to get
Yes.
them to add it to the
Yeah,
motion,
you have to add that, Kathy.
if you want.
You want to add that?
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
so,
Review
and
at the
you
end.
still, you'll second the addition?
Absolutely.
Okay. John, you have any, I know how you feel, but do you have anything you want to say about it? No? Okay, so let's call a vote. So, I guess we don't have to do a hand vote, I think it's enough here. So all in favor, say aye. Aye?
no,
Okay. So we have 4 ayes, 1 opposed. Okay?
Okay, that's it. I just want to wrap up by saying, thank you to Danny, to Mike, to Dave, and to Bill, for all their help, and also to Kim.
Okay, we're not done with the budget yet.
No, wait a minute, you're not done with anything, yet,
Oh, yeah, okay.
okay? You haven't approved the policy.
No, I understand that.
All you've done is this,
All we've done is the thing.
this one page.
Do
Right.
you want to go ahead and try to approve the policy tonight?
Well,
or-
if you don't, then you're gonna have another special meeting between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay,
If you don't, then this doesn't take effect.
No,
okay,
we have to approve the policy.
okay. So then I move that we adopt the proposed personnel policy.
The amendment.
The revisions.
Yeah.
With the revisions that we discussed tonight, and the replacement of section 28 with the overtime and compensatory time off without replenishment.
Do we have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now we can discuss about the other aspects of the policy, that anybody has any questions with, that have been proposed. That includes the harassment area, that includes the other additions, and they were made and subtractions were made by the committee. So everybody's okay with that?
And it's the version that says December 20th, 2021.
So if that's the case, so all in favor of the personnel policy as amended and discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no,
John's opposed the policy as well. So it's 4-1. Okay. Okay, so now we have to deal with,
No, you have another thing. You gotta say in the comp time remaining at the end of 2021
Oh,
is
yeah.
grandfathered till the end of 2022. You haven't done that.
Okay. So, I'll make a motion and we can discuss it. The motion is that we grandfather the comp time remaining from calendar year 2021 to calendar year 2022. And that the calculation is made as it would have been if the comp time were paid off at the end of 2021. Which would mean these comp time hours remaining at the regular rate for a total of $4,300 or so. 4369.
Do we have a second for that?
Well, I'm not sure. So we're saying at the rate of pay today.
Yeah, not at the new rate, the old rate. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion? I think John wants, let's clarify that it is, that would be paid off at the old rate, assuming the budget goes forward
It's
with,
a regular rate.
right, assuming the budget goes through with the COLA.
That's right, so that, employees will have the option then of going ahead and cashing it out by the end of this year, which would make perfect sense if they're gonna get the regular rate. They might just go ahead and cash it out this year. But we're springing this on them, so they may have tax ramifications of doing that, whatever. They may want to hold off until the next year so that they can plan for that. We have not given them any opportunity to plan for an additional compensation.
All right, but if they hold, they get paid at still the old rate.
Old rate.
Okay.
That's my
That's the motion.
motion.
Yeah, that's the motion, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, and they can wait all the way till December of 2022 to be paid at today's rate.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that motion? Why anybody would want to wait till the end of 2022 to get their money is beyond my
I think
comprehension,
it'd be
but that's okay.
very confusing to the one doing it. That you could possibly have two different rates of comp time saved. Am I correct? Am I hearing that right?
No,
No.
Danny, it doesn't get added on.
No, doesn't get added on.
It's like a lump sum that you're gonna get. So your lump sum would be $1,244.
So what you're
And
saying
you
is,
can, but this number could change because
You could
there's
have
gonna
Christmas and
be,
stuff.
this is only as of 12/17. It'll be
Right.
as of
If you have
You're
more
saying-
comp
but
time.
You're saying you could carry that comp time into that.
You can't carry the comp time, you can carry the money.
So you can carry the money. Let me make it really clear.
Well, if we gotta
They-
carry
we
it
have
on,
passed-
we're
we
just
have
gonna
passed-
take it out,
we
right?
have
So you might as
passed-
well not-
I'm
might as well
sorry,
not-
Dave.
I get it, I can see what you're saying now, you're not gonna get
Consider
the
it-
time off, you can just.
Consider it as a
in that.
bonus, okay? You can take your bonus in this year, or you can take your bonus next year, but the bonus doesn't change.
Why would you even have a motion on it then? Because we're probably gonna take the money.
Makes
I
No,
sense.
was,
yeah, we have
I
to-
was saying, we've already worked it and we were saving towards our comp time.
No,
We still need a motion.
it's not
So-
120 plus 70. So you have 190. See what I'm saying? It's 120 plus.
I thought you were gonna let whatever we had carry it across toward the 120 cap
Yes.
of next year. So we wouldn't be building, so say I have 40 hours, I don't build that extra 40 to I'm that much closer to my 120.
I
No.
see.
That's what I thought you were meaning by carrying it over.
I
Which-
see.
No, it doesn't matter, I was just
Is that
asking a
a
question.
more desirable option?
No, just, I think you guys need to.
That's the way I thought it was gonna be.
Okay,
So if it's the money, I'm gonna just get paid out for it. I'm
It's the
not gonna
money.
Wait for it.
You don't
I
add,
was thinking that
No.
since you guys were changing the policy, that because we've already gone into winter and I've saved some of my comp time, that it would be carried over until then next year it would change it.
you don't even carry over the money.
but I want to make sure we're not missing something for you.
No, I brought up my concerns.
Okay,
I hope you didn't take it as I was bullying you.
Oh,
I was
I
paid back.
got broad shouldered there.
And I gave my
I can
opinion
handle
on
it.
it.
okay, okay.
So, you know, I just thought of one thing.
I wish
I don't
I'd
wanna
said that to
get,
Joe.
I don't wanna get this any more convoluted than it already is. But I'm changing the game. Are we changing the rules halfway through the game with these guys? Because
So,
winter has started.
Well, that's my biggest
I
thing.
don't know if that's a concern or not.
No, it has nothing to do with it. If they gain another 80 hours of comp time, well, not 80 hours, but
No.
whatever
I
they
get
did,
it, yeah.
okay? And on December 31st, whatever that comp time is, they get paid for
Nope.
at the rate
Yeah,
of the pay in this year. It doesn't get carried over.
Yeah.
January 1st, if it's a snowstorm, and they get their overtime, comp time, whatever happens, starts January 1st.
I want to make sure we're not missing anything either, because I do feel this is a transition year.
Well, what I'm saying is, before we could start, when the snow started, we started saving our comp time, so I could make sure I got my 80 hours.
But you can't this year, you can do it next year.
What? I guess you're not getting what I'm saying.
Say it again.
I've already started building my comp time to save up before you guys change this for next year for my 80 hours. And I got like
So use
14,
the
and then
real
I'll have
number, so you were
26
gonna
this
use
coming
your,
year.
were you gonna use your 13 hours that you built up?
Yeah, and
You
I
were
got
gonna
26
apply
coming
that
this
to your
week.
new 80 hours?
Yes. And now
And
I'm
is
not
that
gonna
what
be
you were
able to, I
saying
gotta
to
pay.
Danny? Is that what you were saying
I
to
don't
you,
care
play
either
your
way.
40 hours?
So
to
now you
your
get paid
new-
for it.
I was just wanting to be clear what you meant by carrying over. I understand what you're saying.
This is so confusing.
Well, the
Well, that's, I was
carryover,
confused on it.
carryover is a very confusing word, because you're not carrying anything over.
It's remaining.
It's,
It's tough.
That's the word that's used on your check stub is remaining.
the motion states on the floor
Mhm.
is that at the end of the calendar year of 21, whatever comp time has not been used, they get paid for in the form of a bonus,
Yeah.
okay? And that,
It's not really a bonus,
Well,
because we've
okay.
already worked.
I'm just using the terminology,
That's
okay?
right,
Well,
that's
it's-
right.
And
It's
if they
cash
don't,
payout.
if you choose not to take that money, and you choose to take it on February 1st of 2022, you can, but it will be at the rate of the pay of 2021.
I just thought when it was explained to us that we were gonna be able to carry our comp
No.
time over, so. It is what it is.
It's a lot simpler than that, you guys are making way too complicated.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, I have 36 hours, I'm gonna get paid for it.
Yep.
Because with inflation in February, it isn't gonna be 36
Exactly. I
hours, it's
agree.
gonna be 20 hours. So you're just
get the money
having
out
us
front.
take the pay for the content we have right now,
Exactly.
and we start all over. to-
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
that's
exactly
it.
how it is.
You don't need that motion anymore, basically.
Well, we need the motion, but it
Intelligent.
doesn't gonna make any effect.
Okay, so the motion
So-
stands.
All right, so, any more discussion on the motion? I think Bill put it very simply, okay? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Are you opposing or in favor? Favor, okay. All right, okay. Okay, so
Okay,
we're
Kathy,
done.
you second that? Did you?
Yes, yes. Now, we're done with all that comp time on the policy. Now we have to deal with the budget,
Okay,
okay? So this is probably the last time we can meet if you want to change the budget. And I think it was put on there for a reason of possibly the COLA pay. I think that's why it was on.
Okay, but don't, you keep saying every time we meet that this is the final time.
No, it's not, but-
No, it'll be done January
Oh, yeah,
3rd
that's
is your
right, yeah,
meeting to
I
do it. If you didn't want to do anything
Yeah.
tonight, you guys would be absolutely fine.
You're right.
But what
I
is it
always
on
think a
there?
calendar year, not budget, not the budget.
what is it on there for? I'm not understanding why COLA is on there.
There was, one of the select board members came to me and said, did we approve the COLA? And I said, we did at the budget meeting.
Right.
So this is an opportunity to revisit that if anybody wants to. If not, it was approved and it should go on unless
Okay,
you want to check. That's the only
Okay.
reason why it's on.
okay, okay.
Okay?
So we're revisiting something we already approved.
It was just a revision of the COLA, basically is what it was. Or anything else on the budget that you wanted to
Okay.
question.
Okay,
But it was brought to my attention, the COLA.
okay,
But if you don't have anything,
There's nothing, then we'll
Nothing to
discuss
do.
anything. We'll move on.
okay. I don't think we put it on there.
Okay, all right. Bill, the 121 status on the 3992.
I think that's on there if Rich has anything new to add.
Nothing really new, the only, heard from, guy from I always can't remember this.
Sean Dunn.
Sean, no, that's the Vermont environmental deal. The system is working down there. The old slab that we know has contamination. It is being rectified, it is working that system, but they picked up some other contaminants in the atmosphere that they're still deeming the building unsafe to work in. And they don't know exactly what it is at this point. It could be something very benign, or it could be something, who knows? They are hoping at some point, 12-month period-ish, that they'll be able to deem that building safe again to occupy. Is the roundabout. It's still fluid.
Okay.
Is anybody occupying the building now, inside? No.
Cheap tubes, guys called. They're only supposed to be in that building, I forgot how many hours a week now, that because of the air quality. 8 hours a week, or I kind of forget now, 2 or 3 hours a day is the recommendation, but
Okay, but that's really not our concern, so.
you know, three people so far died of cancer related to that building.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if it's because of that, or I don't really know, but,
I have no idea.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
All right, committee reports. I'd like to have Rich Thompson be appointed to the wastewater, parks and buildings and to take Sue Allen's place. Rich has consented, so we just need a motion to make that happen.
That's right.
So wastewater and water.
And parks.
So Sue had all three of those?
Mhm. Sue was on all three.
After this meeting, I don't know what to do. No, just kidding.
So somebody make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All of which you agree?
Yeah, I'm fine, Joe.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. John, nothing on the cemeteries, right?
No, Bill, you haven't sent the letter
I
yet.
haven't heard, no.
Okay.
Well, is it that you haven't heard, or has the
I
letter been
haven't,
sent?
I haven't heard, and I haven't sent him a reminder that he was getting back to us.
Okay, we'll make sure we get the letter out.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow.
Highway committee? Okay. Parks committee? The only thing I can say is that they can't start logging until the weather, everything freezes up, so that's where that stands. Personnel committee, I think we've done, unless you have some more.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say, Joe, is that I want to make a personal comment as a select board member. On at the beginning of the meeting about the forms, to use Rich's word, I was feeling bullied. And I think that Kathy and I have done an enormous body of work on this personnel committee, on this personnel policy. And I would just like the select board members to counterbalance the issue with the form to the body of work we have done revising the personnel policy and coming to this kind of conclusion. And I'd like to ask you to reflect on that too, Joe, in terms of your view.
I had no argument with the work you've done, it was just use of the form. That's my only point. Buildings committee?
Oh, yes, I would like, if Kathy would lead this. We have, as I sent to you, the updates on where he has, there's still preliminary plans, but this is all the ADA work that would be done along with the elevator work. And I'd like to be able to get that back to the architect as soon as possible so that he can keep going ahead with this, if you guys agree with it. And because he hopes to get it all done so that it can be bid out in March. And no, I'm sorry, bid out before March, and by the end of March, have the bid awarded to whoever's gonna build it. That's what his time.
So what Bill and I did, he helped me using these forms and the design work that was gonna be done, so we're in compliance, with the handicap, for the bathroom, the doorways, the extra carpet downstairs. So, I thank Bill for, showing me, you can look at designs, but I don't know what I was looking at, so I can see it, because it could be what he's gonna do or what they were gonna do. And it looks really good, and I said, yeah, I think it's a go, so just wanted to share it with you guys, and if you had any comments.
I wasn't around. What, do we have an estimated cost on any of this stuff? And is it grant funded or is it taxpayer funded? Or-
Funded through ARP,
It's what?
well, funded through the ARP, 190,000, about 201,000 that the town has received from the feds.
Okay.
State.
And we already had, money from the foundation, they're 25,000?
No, 10,000 from the foundation so far.
And we're hoping for more, and then we do have a little bit more. Yeah, the only thing is, I'd like you to approve this, the only thing that needed to be added is, and I talked to Jeff Martell, the resident here who's an architect, we need to note, where he's removing the closet, we need to note that someone has to move that air thing, the heat exchange thing. Because if you don't note it and the architect doesn't do it, then it's gonna be an add-on. So I'm gonna tell him to make sure that they handle the heat exchange, what do you call it?
The radiator?
Huh?
The radiator, heat exchanger?
No,
The
the
vent.
radiator, yes, the things that we're gonna put up here.
Oh, the
Heat pump?
heat pump.
Yeah, so we have to tell them about the heat pump.
So that 190, that's all the heat pump and the elevator and
Well,
the,
this is not gonna cost 190, we don't think.
This should be somewhere around 140.
Could we have a schedule of what the costs are gonna be now that they're coming together?
No,
No,
he will, but he
as soon as you
doesn't.
get the estimate.
Okay, so the architect's gonna provide that?
Yeah.
Okay,
do you plan on using this room for town meeting too, or you can't get the kind of
That's what I put
people out there?
earlier.
It's too small,
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I was gonna ask you what the occupancy for this was,
50.
50? Just curious.
It's too small, it's probably big enough, but in some years. And if
Well,
the- and if
years
the-
ago, we had town meeting in here.
And if the state codifies virtual meetings as regular meetings, then probably we'll have fewer people showing up at the meeting too, so. But, which is too bad, because you want them to vote at the meeting, so.
Do we need a,
I'd like to have a motion
motion, we need a motion here.
for the architect to go ahead.
Somebody make a motion to approve the architect's conceptual plans as presented.
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. You look like you have discussion.
oh no, I'm very happy, I'm thrilled that you're making such progress on this.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Wastewater, Bill and I had a meeting with the Time Bond and Lynette from the state on Friday for almost 2 hours, going over Time Bond's contract and the changes that Lynette has suggested, and what the federal government and what the state has mandated for their proposal to do the study. And so that is, we were to receive that today from Time Bond. It has not come in. And once that comes in and it's finalized, then we will send it to the board for, it'll be on the agenda, hopefully on the January meeting. We also spent a good portion of the time doing this priority list application, which is very complicated. We're not doing it, Lynette's not doing it, but Time Bond is doing it. And so that's supposed to be coming in as well, and then that'll have to go to Lynette to make sure that it costs every I dotted I. Also, they recommended that we deal with the, what is it, the rural, what's the one we're supposed to have a meeting with? The,
Vermont Rural
yeah, something like that, anyway.
Development.
So we're gonna try to have a meeting in January. Lynette said there might be some additional funding there. So, we'll see what that's all about. So that's where we are, and it's moving forward.
Not a lot of detail, just bring me up to speed just a little bit. I don't know, I haven't been following anything in town for a year now.
Okay, the board voted to accept 58,000, I forget what it is, a grant to do a wastewater study in town, okay? That's 58,000 change or whatever it is, there's no obligation for us to pay it back unless the town approves a wastewater system down the line at a town meeting or whatever. So so the time bond was selected by the committee, the original committee, to be the engineer, okay? So now, we're working with Lynette, who is with the Vermont, well, she's
She's with the
USDA.
Tennessee Natural Resources.
Yeah, natural resources in the home, it's all complicated, but it's all tied up together. To get time bonds contract, and to get this form, this priority list application form in the hands of the state. We're on the list, it's not, we didn't lose anything. It's just that we have never really filed the paperwork. It's a 20-page application, very, very difficult. And it's interesting to know, one of the questions was how many failed septic systems we've had so far since 2007?
2007.
Yeah, we've had five failed septic systems, and four others, or three or four others,
3 or 4 others are completely.
that we're not sure why they were rebuilt or what happened to them. So that was one of the questions. And the more you answer these questions about what your needs are for the village septic system, the more points you get, and that puts you in a higher percentage to get more, eventually, if this is approved by the town, and we're a long way away from that. Time bond probably won't even begin the study until sometime in April or May. And I don't know how long it's gonna take, I haven't seen, I don't remember in terms of the contract. Then, but in the process of this whole thing, there's a series of town meetings, public meetings to talk to the public and get their input, why, where, how, what it's gonna do for the town. So all this has gotta happen. And we're probably talking, to a vote, probably, if I had to guess, 2 years, maybe.
The ARPA funding is only available through 2024, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, but anyway,
They're
so,
looking at the town meetings that go on, there's several town meetings
Yeah,
with the study. The
3 or
study
4.
to be completed by the end of next year, and that the construction would be sometime before the end of 2023, if it is approved by the
yeah,
town.
they can do it. And if the town does not approve it, then you take the study like the other two have already been done, and you put it in the shelf.
There's no payback.
Hmm?
This is granted, there's no
No, don't do that.
payback if you don't use it.
So this is gonna be very interesting, because we're having a bridge built and a possible water system.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah,
So anyway, that's the show.
sure, thank you.
Other business?
Time to go home.
If not, public comment? I don't think we have any public comment. We need to now have a motion to go into executive session for a personnel request by an employee. So somebody make that motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Who-
to go with it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we've gone into executive session, I guess, was it?
Is this select board only with the employees?
Yes, only select board only. And Bill will stick around and he'll come back in when and if we have a decision.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wait a second, let me close the recording.
So say they shut off.
Make sure that thing's not working. Thank you, Danny.
Yep.
I got caught on a hot mic a few months ago in the Zoom meeting. It wasn't ready.
No.
Someone got underneath my skin a little bit.